If humans suddenly disappeared from Earth today, what would happen? No cities, no roads, no mobile phones, just dense forests, echoing roars, and gigantic creatures. Now close your eyes and travel 66 million years back in time. Back then, dinosaurs ruled the Earth, and they had absolutely no idea that within just a few hours, the biggest switch-off in history was about to happen. And long after that destruction, on the same Earth, a small, fragile creature would begin to rise. Not the fastest, not the strongest, but one day, it would rule the entire planet. Today's story will tell you in a completely real and grounded way how the dinosaurs went extinct and how humans came to dominate the Earth. To understand that time, you have to understand the world they lived in. Dinosaurs were not just one animal. They were an entire era. In different parts of the world, there were different species, huge plant eaters that moved in herds, heavy animals with horns on their heads, and dangerous predators watching them closely. In the oceans, there were massive hunters. In the skies, there were flying creatures. And beneath the forests, there were small mammals that mostly survived by hiding. This system had been running for millions of years. From the outside, it must have seemed unbreakable, like nothing could ever disturb it. But the greatest truth of nature is this: stability lasts only until something powerful enough shakes it. And 66 million years ago, that shock came from space. According to scientists, a massive asteroid, about 10 to 12 kilometers wide, raced toward Earth at incredible speed. Think of it this way: when something that large enters the atmosphere that fast, the air around it literally turns into fire. It wasn't simply falling, it was a moving explosion. Then it struck near what is today the Yucatan region of Mexico. The impact created a crater now known as the Chicxulub crater. This was no small hole in the ground. It was like a gigantic wound carved into the face of the Earth. In the first few minutes after the collision, the surrounding region would have been instantly devastated. Massive shockwaves, earthquakes strong enough to shake continents, rocks melting from the heat. And in the ocean, tsunamis so enormous they were less like waves and more like towering walls of water. Coastal forests, animals, everything in their path would have been swept away. But what turned this disaster from local to global was what happened next. The impact blasted dust, ash, and molten rock fragments so high that they reached the upper atmosphere. Then that material began to fall back to Earth, and this was not an ordinary rain. As the debris re-entered the atmosphere, it became red hot. Imagine burning particles raining down from the sky for hours. Many scientists believe that vast parts of the world may have ignited almost simultaneously. Forests burned, smoke and soot filled the air, and across enormous distances, daylight dimmed into a dark, choking haze. Now the most dangerous part of the story begins, something people often underestimate. The thing that killed the dinosaurs was not just the impact itself, but the long environmental crisis that followed. The collision blasted enormous amounts of dust and sulfur-rich particles into the atmosphere. So much debris filled the sky that sunlight could no longer properly reach the Earth's surface. And when sunlight is blocked, the first to suffer are plants, because plants make their food using sunlight. As light faded, plants weakened. In many regions, growth slowed or stopped completely. Leaves fell, forests thinned, and soon, herbivorous animals began to run out of food. As the plant eaters starved, their bodies weakened. Young ones began to die. Herds broke apart. And when herbivores fall, carnivores cannot survive either, because their entire food supply depends on them. This was the moment when the entire food chain collapsed. The dinosaurs' strength, their massive size, their dominance, none of it mattered anymore. After this, Earth likely entered a phase similar to what scientists call an impact winter, a period when dust and particles in the atmosphere caused temperatures to drop, weather patterns to destabilize, and sunlight to remain dim for an extended time. In some regions, acid rain may also have fallen, because sulfur and other chemicals mixed in the atmosphere can make rainfall harmful. The oceans were not safe either. When the sky turns dark and sunlight decreases, tiny marine organisms, especially plankton, are severely affected, and the ocean's entire food chain begins with these microscopic life forms. Once they declined, it triggered a domino effect. Small organisms disappeared, fish populations suffered, and eventually large marine creatures were affected as well. Today, we have solid evidence of all this in many parts of the world. Rock layers from that time contain a thin band enriched with an element called iridium, rare on Earth's surface but common in space objects like asteroids. Scientists have also found shocked quartz, which forms only under extreme pressure from powerful impacts. In some places, there are tiny glass-like beads formed from melted rock, along with layers of ash. This is not just a story. It is an answer written in geography and geology. There is another important reality to add. Around the same time, in what is now India, massive volcanic activity known as the Deccan Traps was occurring. For a long period, lava and gases were erupting from the Earth's interior. Many scientists believe the climate was already under stress, and the asteroid delivered the final and most devastating blow. In other words, the dinosaur world faced pressure from multiple directions at once. From above, the asteroid impact. From below, volcanic eruptions. And in between, a collapsing atmosphere. The result was catastrophic. About 75% of all species on Earth went extinct. Non-avian dinosaurs, those not part of the lineage that led to birds, disappeared completely. But listen carefully, dinosaurs did not vanish entirely. One branch of them survived and evolved into a new form. Today, you see them as birds, a sparrow, a crow, a pigeon. They are living chapters of that ancient story. Now the question arises, when such massive creatures disappeared, who survived, and how did the story eventually reach humans? Among the survivors were many small creatures. Some birds, small mammals, crocodile-like reptiles, turtles, frogs, and countless insects. The reason is both simple and brutally true. During a crisis, those survive who need less food, who can hide, who can eat a variety of things, and who can adapt quickly to new conditions. The dinosaurs' greatest strength, their enormous size, became their greatest weakness. When food becomes scarce for months or even years, maintaining a massive body is incredibly difficult. Time moved forward, dust slowly settled, sunlight returned, forests began to grow again. And in this emptied world, something new appeared, opportunity. Now mammals began to step forward. Remember, mammals already existed during the age of dinosaurs, but they were mostly small and lived in hiding. Once the dinosaurs were gone, space opened up, and so did new food sources. Over millions of years, mammals diversified. Some became large herbivores, some fast predators, some adapted to life in trees. Along this long evolutionary journey, one particular branch developed, primates. This was the lineage of monkey-like creatures that would eventually lay the foundation for the human line. Now, if you try to answer the question, how did humans take over the Earth? By focusing only on physical strength, you will never reach the correct answer. Humans did not win because of powerful bodies. Humans succeeded because of the brain, cooperation, and the speed of learning. This too was not a one-day transformation. Much later, in Africa, when climate and environment began changing repeatedly, sometimes forests, sometimes open grasslands, some primates were forced to spend more time on the ground. Coming down to the ground was dangerous, but it also brought advantages, the ability to see farther, to discover new types of food, and to experiment with new ways of moving. Gradually, under this pressure, the ability to walk on two legs strengthened. Walking on two legs had a powerful consequence. The hands became free. And once the hands were free, nature gave humans something more dangerous than any claw or tooth, the freedom to work with their hands. At first, this work must have been very simple. Picking up a stone to break something, using a bone to extract nutrition, cutting fruit, holding a stick for defense. But these small beginnings evolved into tools. The true power of tools is that they extend the limits of your body. You may be physically weak, but with a sharp stone you can cut. You may not be the fastest, but with planning you can exhaust your prey. Alone you are limited. But in a group, you become powerful. And then came the turning point that separated humans from the rest, control of fire. Fire did not just provide warmth. It gave humans light in the night, protection from predators, and cooked food. Cooked food is easier to digest, provides more usable energy, and gives the body more fuel. This may have benefited the brain as well, because the brain consumes enormous amounts of energy. Slowly, human thinking became more complex. Planning, memory, learning, teaching. But humanity's real weapon became language. Language does not simply mean speaking. It means passing information forward, creating rules, building stories, playing with truth and lies, and most importantly, connecting with people you do not personally know. Animals cooperate in small groups. Humans, however, were able to move together in thousands and millions because they could create shared rules, shared identities, and shared stories. This ability eventually built societies, laws, armies, trade systems, everything. A human is not just an individual animal. A human is a network. Much later came agriculture. Farming accelerated human progress. Humans were no longer dependent only on hunting and gathering fruits and roots. They began producing food. Surplus food could be stored. People settled in one place. Populations grew. Villages formed. Then cities. Writing emerged. Knowledge could now be recorded, and each generation could move slightly ahead of the previous one. This accumulated knowledge became humanity's true superpower. A lion teaches its cub how to be a lion, but a human can pass down thousands of years of stored knowledge, language, tools, agriculture, medicine, mathematics, and eventually machines. Then, in just the past few hundred years, human progress exploded, like a detonation. The Industrial Revolution, science, electricity, modern medicine, and technology transformed everything. That is why today humans exist in almost every corner of the planet. And they are not merely living with nature, they are actively reshaping it. Dinosaurs had strength, but they had no technology. They had evolution, but humans have evolution combined with invention. That is the difference. So the most honest and realistic conclusion of this entire story is this. The end of the dinosaurs came from a massive asteroid impact and the collapse of the global food chain that followed. Darkness, cold, fires, acid rain, and a crisis in marine life. And the rise of humans happened much later, slowly over millions of years in that emptied world, where survival depended not on body strength but on intelligence, not on isolation, but on cooperation, not on raw power, but on knowledge. Nature did not reward the biggest. Nature rewarded the most adaptable, the ones who could learn the most.